finishing up a series that we've been doing since October. And the series has to do with the greater things in life. And what I have been challenging you, as I challenge myself, is let's not overlook the diamonds by reaching for the broken glass. God has greater things for us. And today I want to talk to you about the greater reward. The greater reward. I was talking to a young man, this was probably this past summer, we were at a basketball court, and I was asking him, just a little bit, chit-chat, who do you want to be? What do you want to do when you grow up? Maybe this is not a surprise to you. I want to be just like LeBron James. Now, he is an amazing basketball player. But when I was looking at this young man, I didn't discourage him. I didn't say, oh no, that could never happen. I just kind of smiled. Because there's a huge difference between desire and choice. How many of you know what I'm talking about? One time in my life, I desired to be a musician. And being married to a person who teaches piano, I thought, great, I can go ahead and just have my music talent kind of like given to me by my wife. And it was during the first lesson I realized I didn't have what it took to make a life choice. I had a passing desire to be a musician, but I didn't have the stamina that would be needed to even make it through the first lesson. Wasn't that pathetic? I didn't even make it maybe 10 minutes. And my wife said, honey, are you sure? I said, you know what, honey, you're right. You see, desires without choices. There are a lot of people right now that think about Christians and then they think positive thoughts. They think, you know what, that's a good life. That's something that I should do. Someday, I'm going to be a Christian too. I have that desire. And then if you talk to the average person and say, do you want to go to heaven? Well, absolutely, I want to go to heaven. I know that life is short. I know that we die. I know that there's an eternity ahead. Yeah, I would desire to go to heaven. But those same people, so many of them, that's all it is a desire. It never crosses over to become a life choice. So there is moral sensibility, which yes, I want to be a Christian, or yes, I would want to go to heaven. There's that sensibility that says, yeah, that's a good thing. But it has to be connected to moral stamina, which means staying power, perseverance. We're going to read about someone in the Bible who crossed over from desire to life choice. And what does that mean? So let's take a look in the Bible at this man called Moses. Moses, who made a life choice for that which was greatest. The Bible tells us, by faith, Moses, when he had grown up, refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. He regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of great value than the treasures of Egypt, because he was looking ahead to his reward. Would you all read with me this last verse, 27? By faith he left Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He persevered because he saw him who is invisible. Can you say amen to the reading of God's Word?
Amen.
All right. So, you and I are on this planet. We're part of this thing called life. We had a beginning, and we're here now, and sure enough, we will have an end. And so, in this thing called life, we all have to, we can't avoid it, we have to make a life choice. And a life choice is built upon the foundation of two basic questions. Questions that you will have to answer. Even if you think that you're not answering them, you're answering them by avoiding them. Here's the question. Who are you living for? Okay, that's the question. And the second question is, what are you living for? In other words, what do you hope to gain from who you are living for? Okay, those are the two foundations for a life choice. So, who am I living for? Am I living for myself? Am I living to please other people? Am I living to please God? And what do I hope to gain from that? What are the rewards that I hope to expect from choosing the life that I live? Okay. Now, in making a life choice, you have to say yes and you have to say no. Just like you and I physically cannot be in two places at one time. You know, we can't be here and at the same time be in Boston. So we make a choice where we will be. In the same way, a life choice is choosing where we will be, what we will say yes to. All right? And what we will say no to. Moses is called Moses. He was named by his mother who adopted him, who happened to be the daughter of Pharaoh, who happened to be the leader of the superpower of the world, Egypt. And if you read the Bible or you know about the story, you know that Moses was kind of, abandoned in the river by faith. His parents just kind of pushed him off because they know he would have been killed if he had stayed in the home. So they put him in a little papyrus basket and they put him on the river and said, God, please take care of him. And as the little Moses is in the basket and he's kind of floating on the Nile, Pharaoh's daughter notices him and goes to this little basket, opens it up, and there's Moses crying. Pharaoh's daughter just adopts him on the spot. And so, even though Moses is born in poverty, he's adopted into the palace. So as a kid, Moses has an amazing childhood growing up with his grandfather, adopted, being the Pharaoh of Egypt, the ruler of the world in a sense. But something happened. Moses, in his life, came to the place where he had to make a choice. He made a life choice. And it's described in verse 24, this life choice. Take a look at it again, would you? By faith, now he made this decision by faith. When he had grown up, we're not sure exactly how old he was, but something happened, a crisis moment took place. When he had grown up, he refused to be known as the son of Pharaoh's daughter. So Moses, in making this life choice, said no to something. Okay? Think of it this way. Moses had to say no to a sense of superiority. Let's face it. it's got to be high and heady stuff if you're walking through the streets and your grandfather is the Pharaoh. All right? The only thing we can compare it to is President Obama's girls, and where they're walking around having security people around them. That's important. Well, Moses was extremely important. He lived in the palace. His mother was the daughter of Pharaoh. And so this sense of superiority, especially over others, especially over the Hebrews, would have been so pronounced. Because the Hebrews were the low people. They were the bottom dwellers. They were the people who were so low that others didn't even think twice when Pharaoh said, you know, you guys are multiplying too quickly, so we're going to take all your little baby boys and we're going to kill them. After all, they're just Hebrews. The Egyptians were oppressive racists. Do you know where racism has its roots? Because every single one of us has this highway of sin that goes through us. And so we're all racist in a sense. But racism has its root in the sinful pride of mankind. When one person thinks that they're superior than other people, that's the root of racism. And the Word of God, Jesus Christ Himself, obliterates that in the cross. When Jesus died on the cross, He died for the sins of all of us, including the sin of superiority and pride. So He's making the statement by dying on the cross that all of us have sinned. We're all sinners in need of the grace of God. It doesn't matter, how much we make, where we live, what color we are. We all have equal need before Jesus Christ.
Amen. Amen.
And so to overcome anything that our nation is really struggling with racism right now, isn't it? There's all kinds of issues. To overcome this, we find ourselves in Christ and saying no to any sense of superiority. We are equals in grace. We're equals. And so Moses also had to say no to an easy, cushy life. Now, what did Moses have? Moses had money, right? He had respect. He had prestige. He had pleasures. He had everything in life that people today are saying, this is awesome. This is great. This is what I want to go after. Moses had all of that. I mean, if anyone could have led an easy life, it was Moses. But if you're going to make a life choice that honors God, you're going to have to say no to some things that people look at as, these are the treasures. Moses had to say no to the treasures of Egypt. He couldn't bank on easy street. Now, if you're a musician and you're serious and you want to be really good, then there's certain things you have to turn away from. You can't just accept a lazy life. You can't accept undisciplined. You have to really go after it. You have to go after what you feel God has called you to do. That's the only way it works. And so we see Moses here having to reject this easy life. Saying, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and choose what is difficult. Do you know anything in life that's worth anything that isn't also difficult? Do you know anything at all like that? I don't know anything in life that's really worth something that doesn't require difficulty. It doesn't require effort and desire and choices to get there. Now you might say, well, I thought the grace of God was free. Absolutely. God's grace is free. But if we're going to be a disciple of His, the very word disciple has discipline in it. We're going to have to say, God, my choice in life is not easy street. My choice in life is to obey you. Whatever you want me to do. And what else did Moses have to say no to? Moses had to say no to the pleasures of sin. Let's read it. He, Moses, chose to be mistreated along with the people of God rather than to enjoy the pleasures of sin for a short time. Now, let's weigh it out. Okay? On the one hand, mistreatment, misunderstanding, looked at as a nobody. On the other hand, pleasures of sin. Eat, drink, and be merry. You can have it all. Oh, I mean, given that choice, what's the average person in America going to choose? Oh, absolutely. Pleasures, life is all about having fun. Life is the all-night party. It's like, live it up. Who in their right mind choose to be mistreated? To associate with people that are, those people. Who would do that? Moses made a choice. And his choice was saying no to the pleasures of sin. Now, you know, don't you? I mean, I don't have to explain this. You guys are adults. You know that sin is pleasurable, right? I mean, you know that. Sin is not some, horrid thing, it just is awful. It seems to be so terrible. Sin, the deceitfulness of sin, seems so amazing. I mean, it just feels good. I was talking to a man who had been into drugs and had lived on the street, and I just kind of like asking him, I said, what is it about drugs that pulls people? And he gave me a very insightful answer. He said, if you're living on the street all day long and you're depressed, life stinks, and you have an opportunity to take something or that makes you feel good for several hours or for the rest of the day, then chances are when you get the opportunity or the money, then you're going to take something that's going to break that sense of this depression and despair because it's going to make you feel good. Now, I could understand that. I could not accept that, but I could understand that. Because sin, even though it offers pleasure, the freight train comes with self-destruction. There's nothing good that results in the end. Because sin is always destructive in the end, and it's momentary. Do you see the phrase short time? The pleasures of sin are for a short time. In other words, they always go away. In fact, not only do they go away, but you need to go ahead and go deeper into sin to get the same high that you had before. Or the same sexual thrill that you had before in immorality. You have to continue to go deeper. That's why we live in a nation that is so addicted to pleasure. Right? I mean, we have young men all across our country that are into porn. I mean, huge numbers. We're not talking just a few here. And we have all these drug addictions, let alone alcohol. Why is that? It's because sin is pleasurable. It's pleasurable. And so if we're going to find out why we're alive and what our life choice is, we have to be willing to value in life something that is greater than the pleasures that we can give our flesh.
Amen.
Now, you might misunderstand me today. You might be thinking, well, isn't there pleasure in being a Christian? Huh. Absolutely. There's the greatest joy of all in following Jesus. And there are pleasures that we have in Him that He gives to us that are holy and good and wholesome and lead to good things. Come on, are you with me?
Amen.
All right, I'm just fired up about this message. Because life choices require us to be able to say no to certain things. But no is not the final answer. Thank God for that. The Bible says this: the triumphing of the wicked is short, and the joy of the hypocrite but a moment. Those things are fleeting. Here's what we say yes to. We say yes to the greater rewards of God. The greater rewards of God. So life is all about saying, no, that's not me. I don't want that kind of life. My life choice is saying yes to God and to trust Him that He is going to take care of me and also reward me in the way that He wants to reward. What are some of the rewards that God gives? I'll just give you a couple of them. There's so many. But God, if you make a life choice for Him, then He will give you purpose in life. You see, the greatest problem for living for pleasure and just living for yourself is you end up being lost. Because you don't have any reason to live. If you're just living for your own pleasures, Paul told Timothy this. He said, the one who lives for pleasures is dead even while they are alive. So what happens is that if you're just living from one experience to the next, if your day is just like, well, I want to have all these good feelings, so I'm going to go after my good feelings, it's sort of like you're dead on the inside. You need to live for something greater than yourself if you're going to find happiness. That goes against the message in America. Let's face it, we live in a nation that we feel it's our right to pursue happiness. It's our inalienable right, as the Founding Fathers described it. The only problem with that is if we pursue happiness, we never find it. If we pursue God, He throws in happiness as a kind of like on the side.
Amen.
So, the message of the Bible is to seek the Lord and to seek His pleasures and His delights and His desires. Saying yes gives us purpose in life. I love what Warren Wiersbe said. Purpose in life is based upon faith. I can't see God, but I know that He's there. And when you have faith, what happens is that your values are different. When I gave my life to Jesus Christ in 1973, my values changed. It's like, wow, I'm not living for myself anymore. I don't want to live for sinful pleasures anymore. I want to live for God and do what's right. My values changed, and then my decisions changed. Because Wiersbe says, true faith causes a believer to hold right values and make right decisions. I like that. And so Moses found purpose. His purpose was obeying God and connecting with God's people. He might have been the favorite son in the palace, but he connected with his people. And he found purpose. And not only is the purpose a reward that God gives you, but He gives you hope for the future. You see, the reward that God gives us in choosing Him as our life choice is hope. It doesn't matter how difficult life is at the moment. It doesn't matter. I mean, God is there. God is here. God is with us. And our future in Him is greater than anything we can imagine. No matter what we're going through now, we have a future in God. Hope. And so when Moses chose to obey God, then God rewarded him with hope. God rewarded Moses by being able to have hope in the here and now, in this life. He was the one who led the people out of Egypt. God's people. We all know that, right? But not only do we have hope in this life, but we have hope for a whole nother life. Oh yes. Oh yes. I had a conversation the other day, just a few days ago, with an atheist. I'm developing a friendship with him. And it was so interesting because we got into the deep subjects right away. It's like he asked me, he said, "What are you living for?" Well, that's a great question. I love that question. So I told him, that I'm living for God. And he said, "You know what I live for?" I said, "Please tell me." He said, "I live for the moment." And then he described to me some of the things that he does. And I said to him, we're not all different. We're not all that different in a sense, because I live in the moment too. I live in the moment, but I don't live for the moment. There's a big difference. Because, and he even said this, he said to me, he looked me in the eye, he said, "You know what the difference is between us?" He said to me, "I believe there's nothing after this life. And you believe that there is." And I said, "You're absolutely right. I believe that there's more to life than just this."
Amen.
And so, hope for the believer in Jesus doesn't stop when our heart stops. In fact, we're only one heartbeat away from heaven. Right? That's all. That's how close we are. Now, do I want to go there now? No, maybe not. I kind of think I have some other things I need to do. But I'm only one heartbeat away to a whole life that was going to last forever. Well, you can't beat that this thing. That is awesome. So God gives you and I hope for the future. Yes, we live in the moment, but the future affects me. I'm being drawn by the future vision of God and eternity, so that my decisions in the present are being affected by the future. I'm not backing into the future just looking at the past. Say, "Oh, I wish life was like that." And I'm not going into the future just looking at the present saying, "Fill me with pleasures and everything else." I'm going into the future by living in the moment for Jesus Christ. Can you say amen? Amen. Moses regarded disgrace for the sake of Christ as of greater value than the treasures of Egypt. Why? What motivated his life choice? Come on, you see it at the end? Would you read it with me? Because he was what? Looking ahead to his reward. The best things for Moses were ahead. They weren't in the palace. They were ahead. And then I love this verse. I think this is one of Pastor Otto Wagner's favorite verses too, because when I was here one time he was preaching on this message and this verse that he loved so much. By faith, Moses, persevered because he saw him who is invisible. Let me end with a little story. I lived in Massachusetts for maybe 15 years, and there was a man that was born in 1788, August the 9th, in Malden, Massachusetts. His name was Adoniram Judson. Okay? We'll call him Adam for short. Adoniram is kind of a long holy name. But Adam was born as a pastor's kid to a godly family. His parents instilled within him the Word of God and prayed with him, gave him to God. Adam, as he grew, just explored the world, and he had a brilliant mind. And he went off to college, which was called Providence and Rhode Island College. Today it's called Brown University. And so he went to college, and when he was at college, he went when he was 17 years old. He graduated when he was 19, top of his class. But when he was at college, he met a man named Jacob Imes. And Jacob was a very brilliant young man too, but he was also a skeptic, like an atheist. And he did everything he could to take this pastor's son, Adam, away from God. And as time went by, he was successful. Because by the time that Adam had graduated that college, he had ditched his parents' faith. Dad, this isn't for me. I am modern. I am advanced. I am intellectual. And so, after Adam graduated, his parents were heartbroken at his life. But he decided that he's going to explore the world. So this young preacher's kid is out, and he's traveling, and he stops in an inn. All right, he's pretty tired. He goes into the inn, and he pays his dues, and he goes into his room, and he tries to fall asleep. But in the next room, he hears this guy moaning. Like, he's just suffering and is going through a terrible ordeal. And Adam is thinking, oh man, hopefully he gets over this quick so I can't even sleep. But no, the night goes on, and he's moaning and groaning, and he's even, he's suffering. He's saying, oh, I can't take this. And people come into the room from the outside, a doctor shows up, and so on. Well, finally, there's peace and quiet. So Adam gets up the next morning, he's still tired. He goes to the front desk and says, wow, that was such a tough night's sleep. What happened to that guy? And they say, well, he died during the night. Oh, that's too bad. Yeah, his name was Jacob Ames. That was his friend that had turned him away from God. That died in the next room. You talk about a wake-up call. And Adam, at an Iron Judson, 19 years old, made a life choice. Life is short, and eternity is long. And he chose for the rest of his life that he was going to serve God. And he did. For the rest of his life, he followed Jesus. Because he learned something. As the old poem says it well. This one life will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. So, I ask you, have you made a life choice? Have you? Have you made a life choice that you're living for Him? I have. I don't regret it. Would you? Did you make a life choice?